Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 10, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Kamasya nindriya pritir labho jiveta yavata jivasya tattva jijñāsa narto yasceha karma vihi. Life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works. Purport: the completely bewildered material civilization is wrongly directed towards the fulfillment of desires in sense gratification. In such civilization, in all spheres of life, the ultimate end is sense gratification. In politics, social service, altruism, philanthropy, and ultimately in religion or even in salvation, the very same tint of sense gratification is ever increasingly predominant. In the political field, the leaders of men fight with one another to fulfill their personal sense gratification. The voters adore the so-called leaders only when they promise sense gratification. As soon as the voters are dissatisfied in their own sense gratification, they dethrone the leaders. The leaders must always disappoint the voters by not satisfying their senses. The same is applicable in all other fields. No one is serious about the problems of life. Even those who are on the path of salvation desire to become one with the absolute truth and desire to commit spiritual suicide for sense gratification. But the Bhagavatam says that one should not live for sense gratification. One should satisfy the senses only in so much as required for self-preservation and not for sense gratification. Because the body is made of senses which also require a certain amount of satisfaction. There are regulative directions for satisfaction of such senses, but the senses are not meant for unrestricted enjoyment. For example, marriage or the combination of a man with a woman is necessary for progeny, but it is not meant for sense enjoyment. In the absence of voluntary restraint, there is propaganda for family planning, but foolish men do not know that family planning is automatically executed as soon as there is search after the absolute truth. Seekers of the absolute truth are never allured by unnecessary engagements in sense gratification, because the serious students seeking the absolute truth are always overwhelmed with the work of researching the truth. In every sphere of life, therefore, the ultimate end must be seeking after the absolute truth, and that sort of engagement will make one happy because he will be less engaged in varieties of sense gratification. And what that absolute truth is explained as follows. Kamasya nindriya pritir labho jiveta yavata jivasya tattva jijñāsya narto yasceha karma vihi. Life's desire should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation, since the human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works. In this purport, Srila Prabhupada repeatedly refers to sense gratification. This is a term which I believe Srila Prabhupada introduced to the English language. I don't believe it was there previously. He introduced several, such as the three modes of material nature, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Maybe he didn't introduce them. They might have been formulated in the English, for the English publications of the Gauriya Math before he came to the West, but certainly he popularized them or made them available. Such terms are needed. There are no such terms even in the English language. They're so much unaware of this spiritual philosophy that they don't know. They don't have any concept of sense gratification. Sense gratification means literally it's easy to understand, gratifying the senses. That the senses of touch, smell, taste, sight, hearing, contemplation, thought, these all are attracted to the sense objects. Attracted or repelled also. Just like hearing, if we hear some music that appeals to us, we like to hear it. If we hear some sound or some music that we don't like, we want to turn it off. If we see something that appeals to our sense of sight, then we like to look at it more and more. If it's something which we don't like, we don't like to live next to a garbage dump or to an electricity transmission station. It's unattractive. So sense gratification, that means when we see something we like, I should see it. Let me arrange my life so that I can see, touch, smell, taste, feel and hear as much as possible things that appeal to me, and let me, as much as possible, arrange my life to avoid seeing, touching, smelling, feeling and tasting those things that I don't like. This seems to be a reasonable proposition. Modern American society is based on this, to make all arrangements so everyone can enjoy sense gratification as much as possible and to live comfortably, to avoid the difficulties, just like this hall is air-conditioned, it appears. Is the air conditioning on? Yeah. To avoid the slight discomfort, it wouldn't be that much discomfort if there was no AC on, the slight discomfort of a humid summer's day, and in the winter there'll be some arrangement for heating, and the arrangements are also in such a manner as to be as comfortable or as convenient as possible. Just like for heating arrangement, traditionally in this country that would mean chopping wood at the beginning of winter, storing it up, stoking up the fire in the morning. I remember as a child we used to do this. Stoking up not stoking, you have to get the fire going again in the morning. Blow it, clean out the embers. So it's a lot of work. But nowadays you just, wait a minute, you don't do that, you just do that. You can do it by remote control. You didn't get to the point of just thinking and it happens yet. It might not be a very good system because people might think different things about what the temperature should be. So it is a society which is fully dedicated to making life as comfortable as possible so that people can enjoy sense gratification without disturbance. Of course you have to work like an ass to get all these facilities, and although you don't see it, the power that's being the power that's used, the electrical energy, that somewhere it's polluting the environment, but you don't see that. So you feel happy. I'm living very happily. But actually no one is living happily. That is the illusion. Even if it seems happy, it's that the happiness is very small compared to the happiness that the soul craves. And it's temporary. And actually, what happiness is there? We find in modern America, which should be the happiest civilization in the history of the world, if sense gratification is actually that which is our shreya, or for our ultimate benefit. But factually, it's the most disturbed society in the history of the world, at least the history that we know, because they say history begins just a few thousand years ago. So here the Bhagavatam gives a revolutionary statement. It's not a proposal, it's a diktat. Life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. Just exactly the opposite of everything that modern America stands for. Healthy life. Who wants to be healthy? Swim, jog, do yoga, eat healthy. Americans are obsessed with health. So, however healthy you may be, anyway, the body dies sooner or later. So healthy life, yeah, okay, be healthy, but only to preserve the body for the ultimate goal, which is self-realization. Otherwise, what's the use of being healthy? Better to be unhealthy and understand the ultimate goal of life than to be a healthy fool. Very healthy, but you think the goal of life is just to have a healthy body, but it doesn't matter how healthy it is. You die and then you enter another body, and then you suffer again trying to be healthy. So better to be spiritually healthy and prepare to transfer to the spiritual world where there is no birth, death, old age and disease, and there's no bad health anyway. So better, you want to be healthy forever, then go to the spiritual world. And to do that, we have to be more concerned with the spirit than the body. We don't say deliberately be unhealthy, but we should not be obsessed with health of the body. That is another kind of sense gratification based on the illusion. All this endeavor for sense gratification is based on the illusion that I am the body. Srimad Bhagavatam is meant for intelligent persons who understand that we are not the body. The body is temporary, I am eternal. I have no factual relationship with this body. Nothing at all to do with it. It's not me at all. Temporarily, for a blip in time, I am encaged within this body. The body causes so much difficulty. You're practically, so much energy goes into what to speak of good health, just to maintain average health. It requires so much time for sleeping and eating and preparing food. Of course, you have your drive-in Max. You don't have to cook, but then that's not very good food. Then brushing teeth and washing clothes, and so much energy goes into just maintaining average health, what to speak of super fitness. So here is recommended, don't direct life's desires towards sense gratification. Everyone has desires. We cannot avoid having desires. So you may say, well, I have a desire to see nice things, I have a desire to hear pleasant music, I have a desire to dress in this way or that way. I have so many desires, but Srimad Bhagavatam teaches us to desire that which is for our ultimate benefit, because we are in a foolish state. Although we think we're very intelligent, we've produced space rockets and computers and super highways, but all this requires intelligence to develop, but all the intelligence is misused because it's based on an unintelligent premise. The very premise at the beginning is unintelligent, that we shall be happy by having all these things, that life's goal is simply to have all these things. Now that is foolishness. if we consider life is so short, then is there nothing beyond this? Tattva jijñāsa, jivasya tattva jijñāsa. This is stated in this verse. Life is meant for inquiring into the absolute truth. What is the purpose of life? Without that, everything else is meaningless. However much super highways you have and super armies you have and super computers you have, everything is meaningless. In the previous purport, Srila Prabhupada has talked about the cage. We're caged in this body. We think it's me. We're entrapped by the illusion of thinking the body is me, and without higher knowledge we think that engagement of the senses in sense gratification is the goal of life. But again, it's unintelligent. It's like a child. He has desires, but he doesn't know that to restrict our desires and channel them in the proper way. Just like if a child, you have to watch them all the time because they desire to do so many things. A young child desires to do so many things that are harmful. He'll drink the toilet cleaner and put his hands in the electric plug, or want to touch the heater when it's on. It looks attractive, and if you try to stop them drinking bleach, they'll cry. But they should be restricted, and gradually they can become more intelligent to learn that drinking toilet cleaner or bleach is not good for the body. But they don't go beyond that level. They don't learn that sense gratification is not good for the soul. So Srimad Bhagavatam is meant for establishing this understanding in human society, or at least in the consciousness of those individuals who are intelligent enough and fortunate enough to accept it, that human life especially is not meant for sense gratification. It is meant for inquiry into the absolute truth. And that inquiry means a serious inquiry. People are very serious about sense gratification. They dedicate their whole lives. Their whole life is dedicated to working hard to get money so that you can enjoy sense gratification. But here, the Bhagavatam recommends, be serious about self-realization. This life is temporary. You won't live long in this body, but we continue to live after the body has dropped down dead, which it shall do very soon. Even the young, we have all age groups here. We have young boys who are very active. They like to run around. What is your name? Aditya. How old?
4.
Now he's 4. So only 4 years. We think only 4 years passed. But 4 years have gone, and it all adds up gradually. How old are you?
52.
52, yeah. Remember when you were that age? When we were that age, I'm about the same age, so we couldn't imagine. I remember when I was like 6, I couldn't imagine. What is it like to be 10 years old? It seems like, such a big leap in time. But now, having passed a few years, we can look forward, maybe, to another 10 years, and that's about it. And it seems increasingly close, especially when we find so many of our friends passing on. It's going on in our ISKCON now that so many of our godbrothers are just passing on, passing away. So by doing so, they also help us to realize that, well, my time's coming soon. Actually, it's soon for all of us. It seems like when they say at 40 you're in the prime of life, but you're past the halfway mark for most people. So simply to engage the whole of life in searching for sense gratification is a colossal mistake, a total mistake. And the whole of society is proud of their advancement in foolishness. They don't realize that we made a total mistake. The whole society. In America, many of the best people from all over the world, and some of the worst people also, have come here. Many of the most intelligent people, and some of the scum of society also, the criminals who were thrown out of different countries, they also came here. So it's the land of opportunity. Opportunity for what? To spoil your life in a sophisticated way. So Prabhupada opens this purport talking about the completely bewildered material civilization. Completely bewildered. The traditional Indian society is also bewildered, but not completely bewildered, because at least there's some idea that there is a future life, and we have to be careful what we do in this life, because that affects our next life. They're also bewildered, thinking that sense gratification is the goal of life. But some basic knowledge is there. And there's bhakti towards Krishna and Rama, that is there. Even without full knowledge, that is very valuable. That culture is very valuable. But at the present time, completely bewildered material civilization. And in this completely bewildered civilization, some people are not fully bewildered and thinking, yes, we should maybe find out something transcendental, but then there are so many cheaters to cheat them, and in the name of something transcendental lead them back to the same point. Even this Bhagavatam itself, this Bhagavatam is meant for tattva jignasa, not only tattva jignasa, inquiry into the absolute truth, but tattva nirupan, or ascertainment of the absolute truth. Now, what that absolute truth is explained as follows. Srila Prabhupada ends this purport. That means in the next verse it is described. Vadanti tattva vidas tattvam yad jnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shampiti. The absolute truth, the tattva, the param tattva, is described in three ways. That one indivisible absolute truth is perceived in the beginning manner as the impersonal absolute, and at a more advanced stage as the Paramatma, the super soul in everyone's heart. And those who are in full knowledge of the absolute truth perceive the absolute truth as Bhagavan, the supreme personality of Godhead. So this Bhagavatam is meant for delineation of the supreme absolute truth, personality of Godhead, and our relationship with Him. But in the name of Bhagavatam, mostly what goes on in India and now all over the world in the name of Bhagavatam recitation is just sense gratification, pious sense gratification. You won't find any professional Bhagavatam speakers, those who they recite the Bhagavatam regularly to audiences, those who are professionals, those who do it to maintain themselves for sense gratification, pious sense gratification. They're not meat eaters, those who recite the Bhagavatam in a professional manner. But they'll never say this verse. You'll never hear them talk like this. You'll never hear them speak the message of Bhagavatam that we should give up sense gratification. Rather, they'll promise that you listen to the Bhagavatam and you'll get blessed by God for sense gratification. Be good. Don't have sinful sense gratification. They neither practice themselves sinful sense gratification, nor recommend others to do so, apart from a little tea or coffee. But that's also sinful, but not grossly sinful. We can't say that drinking tea is on a par with eating beef on the sin scale. It's on the mild sin scale, but it's not the same as one who eats beef has to suffer in hell for as many thousands of years as each hair on the cow's body. Drinking tea, it's also not recommended because it's only sense gratification. It has no transcendental purpose, neither good for the body in any way, nor is it offerable to Krishna, because Krishna doesn't have tea breaks or coffee breaks. He doesn't bring a thermos of coffee out to the pasturing grounds. So Krishna is not fond of tea or coffee, so we don't take it, because we only take what Krishna takes, and we take his prasad, his mercy that he gives to us. So the professional Bhagavat speakers, they may drink tea or coffee. Most of them do. They even have arrangements for that at the Bhagavat Saptahas. Someone sponsors the tea. Free. Everyone gets free, so. But the professional Bhagavat speakers, they won't speak these verses from Bhagavat. There's so many verses which clearly describe the horrors of being involved in sense gratification. It's not good. It seems nice, but it entangles us in material life. Therefore, Rishabdev, for instance, in the Bhagavatam states, Nunang pramatah kurute vikarma yad indriya pritiya apinotina sadhu manye yata atmano yam asan api kleshada asadeha. He speaks of indriya priti, which is another way of saying sense gratification. Love, enchantment for the sense indulgence, and particularly those who perform sinful activities for the sake of sense indulgence. Rishabdev says they are insane. In America at the present time, I believe it's 70% of the population, they have some kind of psychiatric treatment during their lives. So we can say 70% of the population is insane, but according to Rishabdev, it's more like 99.8%. Because to live our lives in a manner that is completely against our own self-interest, Rishabdev says, this is insane, because they're acting in a manner which forces them to get another body, and the body is a vehicle for suffering. It's not, we think, I will enjoy through the body, but the more we attempt to enjoy, the more we suffer, and actually the ability to enjoy through the senses goes down also. Those who indulge in a lot of sex become bored by it, and they may become impotent. Those who eat too much and at irregular times, and all horrible things, difficult. Mostly the horrible things are very difficult to digest: crabs and lobsters and meat. So they get indigestion and ulcers, and so they get all kinds of diseases. So anyway, they have to restrict their diet. So like this, indulgence in sense gratification, the more we indulge in it, the more our ability to do so goes down. Whereas those who live a moderate lifestyle, their health is preserved better, and their senses don't become dull. We're not saying close down the senses. No, the senses are good. if engaged in the proper manner, which is Hrishikena Sevanam Bhakti Ruchate. Hrishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchate. To engage them in the service of Krishna, who is the master of the senses. That is called bhakti. So, people don't understand how they're misusing their life. Rishabdev also says, Nayam deho deha bhajan riloke kashtan kaman arhate vidibhujam ye tapodivyam putraka yena sattvam shudyat yasmad brahma sokyam tvanantam. He compares persons who are interested only in sense gratification with pigs that eat stew. Because pigs also enjoy. They think it's very nice. The breakfast that we eat today, at least in India, that becomes the pig's breakfast tomorrow. It's processed for pig flavor. The way the pigs like it. How do you like your bread? You like it with butter on one side, sandwiches, and how does the pig like it? He likes it processed. Just like we take milk from the cow processes the grass and we take milk. So we process the cow processes the milk for us to take, and we process for the pig to take. And then people eat the pigs also. So this is the natural cycle. So Rishabdev compares the persons who are interested in sense gratification to the pigs. They just eat anything, have sex with their mothers, and you'll see in India the little piglets. They'll jump under the mother to suck the milk, and then they'll jump on her back. Piggish civilization that is interested in sense gratification. But Rishabdev says, don't do that. Undertake austerities for the sake of spiritual realization by which we can attain eternal happiness. Now Srila Prabhupada in this purport mentions that even in the field of religion there's sense gratification. We see that people they presume that religion, even that is meant for sense gratification. We'll go to heaven and enjoy ourselves. They have no idea of serving God. There's some God is somewhere. God has no forms. We're not really we'll pray to Him. When we want Him to be a person, we'll pray to Him. But we don't really want to know too much about Him because we want to enjoy ourselves. So we don't think too much about Him. And probably doesn't have any form anyway. So don't think too much about God. Just pray to Him and He'll give you what you want. One of the ex-archbishops of Canterbury, the head of the head of the Church of England, he was asked, what do you plan on doing when you go to heaven? They presumed he was going to heaven, although according to Vedic understanding, he was going in the opposite direction because he's another meat eater, and meat eaters don't go to heaven. So he said, I'll spend the first 100 years glorifying God and the rest of eternity enjoying myself. And this is supposed to be a spiritual, religious leader, the religious leader of millions of people. Ignorant, fool, highly respected, religious, ignorant fool. Such people are dangerous. They shouldn't be allowed to be spiritual leaders. Just like someone who doesn't know how to drive shouldn't be allowed to drive. Someone who doesn't know what they're talking about shouldn't be allowed to teach. If you go in the university, you should have a professor who knows the subject. Someone who bluffs that I'm a doctor, and then later on they find out he's not a doctor at all. He's got some bluff certificates. Such a person will be put in prison. He's antisocial. So someone who doesn't know the science of God and who teaches it. Even they talk sometimes about this Hare Krishna movement being a cult or a sect. But I would say what they call the mainstream religions, they're a cult or a sect in as much as they're dangerous. They dangerously mislead people by presenting, they don't actually have any spiritual knowledge, and they present what they think is right, based on misinterpretations of the Bible. The Bible itself is all screwed up because it's not the original teachings of Jesus anyway. And it's just centuries of ignorance. And because it's a long established ignorant tradition, they call it a bona fide religion. But what is bona fide? That which gives us actual knowledge of God and our relationship with Him. But they have no idea. They have, in the name of religion, they have no idea actually who is God. And they're so much devoid of any idea that they think that it's up to the individual to imagine whatever you like God to be. It's so far away from any real knowledge of God. And therefore, because they don't have knowledge of, they don't even know that He's the supreme enjoyer, that we are meant for His enjoyment. They think that even God is meant for our enjoyment. There's not that much difference between the atheist and the theist, because both think that the goal of life is sense gratification. Only the theist, so-called theist, because they don't really know who God is, but the so-called theist thinks that we get sense gratification by praying to God. And the other one says, forget God, there's no God. That's all. There's not. Their basic goal of life is the same. I, me, and mine. I'm interested in my sense gratification. They don't understand that we are not the center of the universe, that Bhagavan, God, He is the center of everything, and everything is meant for His enjoyment. But His enjoyment is of a different category of that which we perceive as being for our enjoyment. His senses are not impure. They're not based on His any impure exploited tendency. Our sense gratificatory tendency is based on exploiting others. But His sense gratificatory tendency, His desire to enjoy Himself, means He's fully able to reciprocate with all of His servants, and they become fully happy by serving Him. Bhavanta charam nirantara prashanta nishesha. What is that? Bhavanta nishesha. Manoratantaram. Now I forgot the verse. But Yamuna Acharya says, Kadahame aikantika nitya kinkara praharshiyashami sanata jivitam. He says that when will I be fully satisfied and happy by taking shelter of you, Krishna? That is the position of actual happiness. Beyond the platform of manorat, of simply imagined happiness. This Prahlad Maharaj speaks of that also. Shuti Sukh. Happiness in this material world is something we hear of and we imagine it to be happiness. Just like the happiness of drinking Coca-Cola is something that is advertised. We hear about it. We're informed of the happiness of drinking Coca-Cola. But there's no actual happiness in there. You can drink Coca-Cola all day and night, and you'll never find there's not one drop of happiness in there. It's just imagined. So it's like that with every form of sense gratification. We presume that there's happiness there, but there's no actual happiness, because the body is not the vehicle of happiness. The material body is a vehicle of distress more than happiness, or what we conceive of as happiness. Nice food, nice things to look at, nice house, but it doesn't satisfy the soul. So Bhagavan, He is the reservoir of actual happiness, and our actual happiness is in relationship to Him. Srimad Bhagavatam gives us knowledge of Him, how we can understand Him as much as our highly limited intelligence can do so. By material intelligence, we cannot understand it. Material intelligence means the intelligence that is polluted by the concept of myself being most important. And spiritual intelligence means to understand and accept that my importance, whatever importance I may have, that is only due to my relationship with Bhagavan, with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I have no intrinsic importance, but because He loves me, then I should try to please Him. Otherwise there's no point in existing. So Srimad Bhagavatam gives us factual knowledge of God. Due to lack of knowledge of God, so many wrong ideas are there in human society about God. There is no God. There was a God, but He died. Or God has no form, or He has many forms, which comes to the same, everything is God. Many forms, yes, He has many forms, but that doesn't mean that every form is Bhagavan. Or they misunderstand, they'll take some demigod to be God, to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Or in modern India, it's become fashionable to ascribe human being as God. That's very common. That's going on in Christianity. They made a seminal mistake right at the beginning of thinking that Jesus is God, although He never said Himself, I'm God. He represented Himself as the Son or emissary of God. There are so many wrong ideas, and people, they see something that looks religious, there's some rituals and maybe a temple or a church, and they advise you to be good, and they think it's religion. They have no idea actually what is religion. So that's why just in this town at the present time, they're making a temple of Swaminarayan with the Swaminarayan Sahajanand Swami's form in the center and that of Radha Krishna at the side, which is, and it appears to be worship of Radha and Krishna, but actually it's offensive to Radha and Krishna. The concept that there's any form above them or better than them. Radha Krishna should be in the center. And Swaminarayan, if he's at all to be worshipped, should be worshipped in the way that he said. He told others to worship Radha Krishna. So that should be done. He can be worshipped as a devotee, but to say that he himself is God is blasphemy. Yastu Narayanam Devam Brahmarudram Daivitan Samatveineva Viksheta Sapashandi Bhavedruvam. One who thinks that even Brahma or Shiva, what to speak of minor gods, what to speak of human beings, are on the same level as Narayana, is actually an atheist. So to say that all gods are the same, we respect all the gods, that's incorrect. That's not bhakti. The way that I have bhakti for all of we can have bhakti for Shiva and Durga, understanding their position. If we understand their position, that they are servants of the Supreme Lord Narayana, we can offer them suitable respect. That is suitable respect. But to say that they're on the same level as Narayana, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is offensive to Narayana. If there's a chauffeur driving the president, and they both get out of the car, and we offer the same respect to the chauffeur as the president of the country, then that's a mistake. We don't know. We don't know which one's the chauffeur and which one's the president, so we didn't see them, and so we don't want to make any mistakes, so we give them both a 21-gun salute, and the guy's just a driver. He becomes important because he's the driver of the president, but that's all. He's not important in his own right. So all the demigods, they're important because they're representative, or they're servants of the Supreme Lord. That's how they're important, but they're never as important as the Supreme Lord Himself. But because we don't know, we make so many mistakes. So spiritual knowledge is required. Another bogus thing, very prominent in America at the present time, is that just feeling that we're spiritual and we just feel spiritual is another nonsense. Feel? What feeling? We should know what is our relationship with the Supreme Lord. we presume that I'm pure and therefore my feelings are pure. But it all ends up in the same thing, sense gratification. It all comes to the same end. If we don't know who is God and what is our relationship with Him, then we cannot act in our spiritual constitutional position of service to Him, and therefore all that's left is sense gratification, either gross or subtle, either sinful or supposedly pious. So this knowledge is required in human society. At least you can take it and try to distribute it also. It's clear delineation of reality. So please accept it. And don't indulge in sense gratification more than is required. We require food, clothing, shelter. Roti, kapra, makan, as it's said in Hindi. And not anything more. Most people, due to lack of control of the senses, they also require sexual indulgence. So then you require a lot more once the family arrangement should be there. That's the religious way of regulating sex indulgence. So then responsibility is to be taken in family life. But that should also, family life should be directed towards self-realization, not towards simply indulgence of the senses. Why there's so much breakdown of the family in modern America? Well, at least previously there was some religious idea that there's a religious responsibility. You're married in the name of God. But now it's just based on, well, I like you, you like me, but that can change. Now I don't like you, so okay, get divorced, try again. It never works. The basis is wrong. The idea that we've come together just to enjoy ourselves, but where's the enjoyment? There's always so much distress, and there's always the idea that we'll be happier in another relationship. So there's not even basic religious responsibility is there. So therefore people are suffering so much for lack of proper knowledge. As long as we do not inquire into the absolute truth, then we are simply frustrated, we are defeated in our endeavors to be happy. So we say, be happy. Everyone should be happy, but we should know how to be happy. That tendency is there, that inherent proclivity is there within every living being to want to be happy. The plant grows toward the light. Even in such covered consciousness of that of the jiva, the living being in the form of a plant, he's trying to get the light which he feels is better for his nourishment and sustenance. So that tendency is there to want to be happy. But considering that happiness can be achieved through sense enjoyment is a mistake. If you have more money, then you can buy more kinds of cosmetics and have a bigger house and a bigger car or cars and go on holiday to suffer with another bunch of holiday makers at a further away, more prestigious destination. But that's not happiness. Happiness is the natural result of serving Krishna without any personal motive. And nothing else can give happiness. This is described in Srimad Bhagavatam. So be happy. Everyone be happy. But we should know that happiness is impossible to achieve by any other means than that of surrender to Krishna, serving Krishna in full dedication. Hare Krishna. I'll finish the talk there and we'll take questions.